Hello, and welcome back to Ming's Outboard Garage. In this episode, we'll be talking about the fuel tank. We'll talk about how to clean and service it, and then once we're all done, what kind of fuel to put inside. So stay tuned and let's get to work. Let's first talk about the fuel tank, the different components, and what they do. So on these vintage outboard motors, the purpose of the fuel tank should be obvious, is to hold the fuel, as well as keep it clean and allow it to come down into the carburetor. So there are really three main parts. We have the tank, the cap, as well as the fuel valve. One thing I want to mention about the cap is that it's a special cap. It's not just a cap that you turn and close off the opening here, but there's actually another knob that you see at the top. So I have another fuel tank here. This is from a JH-22. You'll notice that on top of the cap, there's a similar knob that can be turned. The purpose of this knob is to allow ventilation and air to go into the fuel tank as the motor is running. This is a critical step and must be remembered in order to get your motor to run properly. Because if the vent is not open, then it creates a vacuum seal and it does not allow the fuel to continue to run down into the carburetor. The other piece I want to talk a little bit about is the fuel valve. So as the fuel travels from the fuel tank down into the carburetor, this is the valve that turns on and off the fuel flow. Now on this particular model, the JH-22, there is just a hole and nothing else here. So it's very important that the tank is clean so that any debris or grime or built up gunk from the tank does not flow right inside into the carburetor. On the TN26 and some of the other models, you'll notice that inside is a filter as well. So if your tank has a filter with this that comes with this valve, it's important that you clean and service this filter. Okay, so that's essentially all the different components of the fuel tank. The next steps we'll do is clean it. So we'll go through three different cleaning processes. Each one has their own purpose, and I'll walk you through the steps one by one. Here we go. The first cleaning that we'll do is with warm soapy water. It's fairly straightforward. The purpose is to help degrease the inside of the fuel tank and help get rid of any leftover varnish that is still in there. I also have around 15 or so just nuts, and these are IKEA furniture screws, and we're gonna put them into the tank as well with the warm water and slosh it around so we get both a chemical as well as a physical cleaning of the inside of the tank. I'll show you a before and after picture as well. So before we actually do the cleaning, I want to talk about how to clean it. So once you've put all the nuts inside, pour the warm soapy water in, make sure that it's closed on the top as well as the bottom, and then slosh it around and get the nuts inside to clean the inside of the tank for about 5 to 10 minutes. And when you're doing that, don't just hold it in one position, rotate it around and make sure that you get all of the different surface areas inside. Okay, so we'll do the soapy water cleaning and then move on to the next step. Okay, it's been about 8 minutes. I'll go ahead and pour out the solution to see how it looks. And then I will also give the cap as well as the filter a good scrubbing with warm soapy water. So let's take a look. Honestly, not as bad as I expected. So I'll go ahead and clean out the cap as well as the filter with warm soapy water. I'll be right back with the next step. Okay, now that the first step is done, we've already seen some big improvements in how the tank looks inside. As you can see here, from the before and after, it already looks much cleaner. In addition, while I was cleaning the fuel valve, I noticed that it was gunked up inside. Even with the valve on, the water as I was rinsing it under the sink would not flow through the valve and out the other end. So I did some additional cleaning and I was able to clear that passageway, and now it can actually allow the fuel to run through. So that could have been one of the issues that was causing the initial problems, where my client told me that at low idle the motor would not run well. Probably the fuel was not able to get into the carburetor at a fast enough rate. Okay, so now that we have cleaned the first degreasing step, the next step is to get rid of any leftover rust that may be there or scales. So what we have is vinegar. So I'm using distilled vinegar, and I'll put that in there and go through the same process, shake it for about 5 minutes. But for this step, it's important to remember that it's a chemical process as well. So after we shake it for about 5 minutes, I'll let it sit for about 20 to 30 minutes and then shake it again for another 5 minutes. So I'll go ahead and do that and report back with how it looks. Stay tuned. Okay, so we're pretty much done with the second step. Let's pour it out and see how it looks. This looks pretty good. You can see there are specks of rust and dirt that are inside, but I think overall there's no large flakes or large pieces of rust, so I don't think we'll need to rinse it again with distilled vinegar. So we can move on to the next step. So the next step of this process is to give it a good rinse. So we can rinse it out with water, but we want to make sure that we dry it quickly so it prevents any flash rusting. And this is where the pro tip comes in. So what I recommend to do is, after rinsing it with water, to use denatured alcohol and give it another sloshing for about 60 to 90 seconds. And what this does is that it displaces the water and prevents any kind of flash rusting that could occur. Another thing you could do is add a little bit of the 2-stroke oil to the denatured alcohol solution, and this also helps to coat the inside of the fuel tank. All right, So I'm gonna do that now. I'm gonna go rinse the fuel tank with water and then add a solution of denatured alcohol plus some 2-stroke oil, slosh around for 60 to 90 seconds, and then come back and show you how it looks. All right, I've gone ahead and finished rinsing the fuel tank and also removed all the nuts that were inside. And now we're ready for the next step. So I mixed together denatured alcohol plus a little bit of 2-stroke oil, and we'll go ahead, pour it in, slosh it around for about 60 to 90 seconds, and then pour it out and let it air dry. Okay, here we go. For this part of the process, you don't need to shake very vigorously, just gentle sloshing and making sure that all surface areas are covered should be enough. Okay, we'll let this air dry and then I'll show you a picture of how it looks at the end. Please keep in mind denatured alcohol is a hazardous material, so please dispose of it properly. We have finished cleaning the fuel tank. We followed 3 different cleaning processes, one with warm soapy water, the second with distilled vinegar, and lastly, after using a water rinse with denatured alcohol mixed with 2-stroke oil. So overall, this is how the fuel tank looks. I think it turned out pretty well. Before we close this video, I do want to spend a minute talking about the fuel mixture that we'll be putting inside to test the motor. Now, the purpose of the fuel mixture is a mixture of oil as well as gasoline to lubricate the motor. And per the Johnson service manual, this has to be mixed at a specific ratio. If the ratio is too dilute, meaning there's too little oil, it can cause excessive wear and early breakdown of the motor. If there's too much oil in the ratio, this can cause a faulty performance as well as excessive carbon buildup, and it's also not good. So per the Johnson service manual, it recommends a ratio of 1 to 24 for engines prior to 1964. And even after 1964, although this ratio changes to 1 to 50, it recommends using a break-in period of the 1 to 24 ratio. So for testing out these vintage motors, I will be using 1 to 24 ratio as well moving forward. I hope you found this video helpful, and in the next episode, we'll do a teardown of the carburetor, which I've already taken off of the motor, and then we'll show you some of the key differences between the carburetor of this motor versus similar models. Stay tuned, and I hope to bring you more content in the near future.